Hello everyone, I am the Enforcer, and welcome to the Breaking News. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we've been able to hear breaking news from throughout the world, as we've been able to hear inside the Middle East that the United States embassies are now preparing for evacuations, while at the same time U.S. naval bases in Bahrain have been placed on high alert. This is coming as information is beginning to tip off U.S. sources, as well as the Iranians, that Israel appears to be preparing for its own attack against the Islamic Republic of Iran's nuclear enrichment and production capabilities. We have also been able to hear a direct statement from the Islamic Republic of Iran itself threatening war this morning with not just Israel but the United States in turn, saying that if any targets are hit inside of Iran, the Iranians are going to attempt to target and destroy all U.S. bases within the vicinity of the Middle East. This is also coming at the exact same time as the North Koreans are now ramping up their own nuclear weapons production programs, as according to the International Agency or the International Atomic Energy Agency, we've been able to hear that the North Koreans are now going to be building a new nuclear enrichment facility inside the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, greatly heightening the amount of production that can be conducted on any given moment for nuclear warheads that would be vital for the North Koreans to continue their reign of terror throughout the area of the Western Pacific. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear inside the Russian Federation that the armed forces of Ukraine have been able to target successfully multiple Russian facilities throughout the Russian Federation, with significant explosions being reported in Engels and Tambov, with a major gunpowder factory being targeted and destroyed within the area of Tambov. Meanwhile, outside of that, we have also been able to see inside of Kursk that Ukrainian armed forces were able to conduct a significant artillery barrage overnight of Russian positions and force buildups throughout the area, targeting Russian positions incredibly close to the ongoing Sumy offensive, as well as Russian forces that were once again hiding in Marino, much like a famous attack that occurred several months ago. We have also been able to hear in unfortunate news for the first time ever that the Russian Federation has also begun to enter the Dniprotrovsk Oblast for the first time in the entirety of the war. We have quite a large amount of news. As you can see here, it is an absolutely massive amount. And getting on into our first pieces of news, we are going to be moving on into the Middle East, as it does appear that the state of Israel will now be preparing for strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have not been able to get any direct statements from the state of Israel's government, but we have been able to get actions and statements from other nations throughout the area, particularly the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran, that are certainly showing us that some kind of military action is now inevitable within the region. As we have been able to hear that just earlier today, the Islamic Republic of Iran has directly threatened a state of war, with Iran's defense minister stating that if we go to war with the U.S., Iran will strike every American base across the Middle East, in a statement earlier today. While at the exact same time, the United States of America is now evacuating embassies throughout the area, as we've been able to hear that dependents in Bahrain are authorized to leave, and U.S. embassies in Baghdad are now preparing for a complete evacuation. It does appear that at this moment, the United States of America is preparing for some sort of a military action within the region, and not just were diplomatic dependents allowed to leave Bahrain, but we've also been able to hear that a U.S. naval facility is now on high alert within the area, and it does appear that something incredibly severe will be going down as a result of this. U.S. actions in the sense of putting embassies on high alert, or for example putting military installations on high alert, is usually done in an incredibly rare scenario, and usually done when the outbreak of some sort of hostilities or major conflict is quite truly inevitable within those next several hours or the next 48 hours. At this point, knowing the situation that's going on in the Middle East and the endless fruitless attempts that have been made to try and see a peaceful denuclearization of the Islamic Republic of Iran, it is highly likely the case that the state of Israel, which has made it incredibly clear up till this point that they are pursuing a hostile action against Iran, may be preparing to finalize their strikes against the country and may be seeking to bring down Iran's nuclear weapons and development programs if their air bombardments can. Because of this, we do know that the Islamic Republic of Iran has directly stated that any attack by Israel will be considered an attack jointly by the state of Israel and the United States of America. And the Islamic Republic of Iran will respond to both of them in the form that both had attacked at the same time, even if the United States' prevalence in the attack was completely non-existent. For this reason, it would make a lot of sense that U.S. embassies and bases throughout the region have been placed on high alert, as it is incredibly likely that at this point, the United States of America is preparing for the retaliatory attacks by the Islamic Republic of Iran, and then the future inevitable actions that will have to be made in response and defense of the United States assets and more so standing in the Middle East against the Islamic Republic of Iran's counterattack, which would largely be considered a attack outright on the United States and not one that would be considered a defensive attack. Outside of that, we have also been able to hear that more nuclear drama is continuing within the Western Pacific, as while the denuclearization issue continues to ring out the Middle East and continue to see that all sides are kept in a high state of tension as the Islamic Republic of Iran continues to try and create a nuclear weapon, it appears that the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, just recently developing nuclear weapons in 2007, is now continuing on with even further enhancing the amount of nuclear weapons and nuclear enrichment that they are able to conduct, as the North Koreans are now building a new uranium enrichment facility according to the International Atomic Energy Agency. From what we understand, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea still considers their nuclear arsenal to be the most important part of their country. The nuclear arsenal provides them an umbrella where they largely cannot be attacked without some sort of a significant retaliation being launched either against South Korea, Japan, or the United States directly. For this reason, the North Koreans appear to be aiming to grow their nuclear arsenal even larger, and possibly to help out with trying to position themselves on the global stage in support of countries like the Russian Federation. For this reason, we do understand that they are now going to be developing another nuclear enrichment facility within the Democratic People's Republic of Korea to help further their aims and ambitions of enriching enough weapons-grade uranium to be able to increase the amount of yearly production of nuclear warheads. At this moment, we do understand that pretty much all uranium that the North Koreans have at this moment is coming from the Pyeongsan uranium plant. Largely an interesting sort of adventure, North Korea does not have any natural deposits of uranium ore inside of its country, much like others like the United States and the Russian Federation do have, along with the People's Republic of China. On the other hand, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is incredibly rich in coal, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea has resorted to burning massive amounts of coal to gain access to the trace amounts of uranium that is found inside of coal. All coal in the world, specifically bituminous coal, is generally radioactive, with some slight amounts of uranium-235 being within them. Burning a large enough mass of coal actually allows for you to have a decently, highly enriched, I suppose, amount of uranium ore, which then you can then further refine in centrifuges to create the kind of weapons-grade uranium that would be necessary for the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. From what we understand, the Pyeongsan uranium plant will not be responsible or be a part of further enrichment of uranium materials for weapons production. It actually will be a new facility that's being built in an undisclosed area of the country that the IAEA has not yet told us about, but we do understand they have some sort of a lead or tip that there is a second enrichment facility or centrifuge that is currently being built inside the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Outside of the nuclear development news, both in the Western Pacific and in the Middle East, we have also been able to hear of other major developments within the area of Eastern Europe, as we have been able to hear that the Russian Federation has continued to deal with significant Ukrainian drone strikes overnight. Once again, these drone strikes are hitting critical military infrastructure and wartime production, along with military targets throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation. And we've actually been able to see that a major attack was able to be pulled off in the city of Kursk, just south of the city of Tambov. Tambov is a somewhat important city for the Russian Federation, but it's actually the town of Kursk that is incredibly important, because here within the confines of this large facility that almost looks like it's within a forest is a major gunpowder production facility. This gunpowder production facility not only produces gunpowder for the rifles of the Russian Federation and the small arms cartridges that would be used across the wide variety, including 7.62 by 54 rimmed, along with 5.45 by 39, but they also produce the kind of the munitions or gunpowder that would be necessary to be able to fire Russia's heavier caliber systems, such as the 152 millimeter main guns of their SPGs, along with the 122 millimeter main guns, which are also incredibly common with the 2S1 Gazivka class SPGs. It does appear that the armed forces of Ukraine were able to directly hit this facility and cause significant damage to the gunpowder plant, as we were able to see a large amount of videos showing the hit and the subsequent fires that were resulting. We can see that the fire smoke was pure white, once again showing us that some sort of gunpowder itself was actually on fire in the resulting explosion, once again showing us that this was able to hit a direct area of the facility responsible for the production of gunpowder.
Склад боеприпасов горит. Боеприпасы взрываются. Видите, они вот просто вспышками. Это пиздец.
It does appear that the fire is flaring up from time to time throughout the course of the video, as you can see here. There is a significant flare-up, and it may be because it is actually reaching new caches of gunpowder within the facility and then flash burning them in a major fire like the one that we're seeing right here. Flash burns can burn incredibly hot and cause a massive amount of damage in a very short amount of time, and we are assuming that at least this specific area of the facility has most likely taken irreparable damage due to the heat, fire, and flames of these massive flash-offs that are occurring on the gunpowder that was inside of the factory. We also got to see that the gunpowder plant was attacked from multiple other angles, including these 4 videos right here. We can see the fire flaring up off in the distance near to the area of, we're actually not really sure where the area is inside the gunpowder facility, but it does appear to be one of the main manufacturing halls just because of the rapid flash-offs like we're seeing right here.
Нам пиздец.
Moving on to our next clip, we also got to see another footage as well, once again showing us the process of the attack and also the subsequent fire. Moving on into our third clip, we also got to see here the actual sounds of air defense fire. Once again, it appears to all be small arms based, most likely using some form of a PKP machine gun or an AK-74, but we can see that the rifle fire is being directed quite heavily towards the Ukrainian drones, but still, it appears that that was to no avail, as the drones were able to impact directly onto their targets and cause irreparable damage to the gunpowder facility. We can actually see the drone coming in right there. Even as the sound of AK and rifle fire continues to break through the air, it appears that the drone has not been hit and is continuing to fly unfazed towards its target.
Куда ты побежишь?
We can also hear the explosion once again of the drone impacting the target, and then moving on into our last clip. This is actually the lengthiest and most in-depth one that we've had so far of the gunpowder facility getting hit, and funnily enough, it's also the one farthest away. We actually do not know where this was filmed from. It is actually entirely possible that it could have been filmed from the southern side of Tambov, looking south towards the city of Kursk, as it's not incredibly far away, and we are seeing apartment blocks that do look somewhat similar, at least in form, to the apartment blocks that we were able to see here within southern Tambov. Highly suggesting that this may actually be footage from this area of southern Tambov looking south and somewhat eastwards towards the area of the gunpowder facility. Nevertheless, we actually got to see in this very clip the initial explosion of the first drone that impacted the facility, which we'll see right there. The first drone appears to have hit, and once it hit, we could see that the explosion subsided, and then we started to see either a second explosion or flash-offs of the gunpowder within the production halls of the factory. We can actually see that it is pulsing as the fire is starting to reach different large caches of gunpowder throughout the facility, and then rapidly flash burning it all into one massive fireball at a time, slowly spreading from place to place, and once again getting each massive pile of gunpowder, each massive storage case of gunpowder in the area. And we see the fire is incredibly irregular. I do want to make sure to point that out over and over and over, because if this was, for example, a hit onto the building itself and it was on fire, we wouldn't be seeing rapid flash-offs like we're seeing right here. This is entirely suggesting, due to the irregular nature of the flare-ups and how quickly they're put out and then pretty much don't go off for a little while, at least from this view, it is clearly showing us that some sort of a volatile substance, highly likely the gunpowder within the factory, is starting to get set on fire in large amounts at individual moments, and then creating the flash-offs that we're seeing here on screen. The damage to a gunpowder production facility like this is actually quite severe, and could start to impact the Russian Federation's ability to be able to get a large amount of ammunition onto the front lines. Unlike popular belief, gunpowder actually only has a limited time frame of survival, especially when it's put into not necessarily great conditions. For example, high humidity or high moisture can greatly increase the chance of failure or fouling inside of the cartridges, and for this reason, ammunition, while it can sit around for 30 years, it is not exactly recommended to have it sit around for 30 years, as there could be high chances of fouling due to some sort of contamination of moisture within the cartridges themselves. For this reason, a continuous stream of gunpowder production, both for the artillery, the tanks, and also the small arms, as well as any other artillery systems, is incredibly important, as it ensures that there's a reliable source of ready-to-use ammunition at any given moment. Older ammunition is only used in a last-case resort, and due to the loss of this gunpowder facility, we may see that a lot more older ammunition is used on the front lines, which means that there may be a higher rate of failures inside of Russian artillery and small arms during the time that this facility will be down and out. Depending on what specific area of this facility it hit, if it hit and burned and destroyed any specialized machinery that was involved in the production of the gunpowder, we may actually see that this gunpowder facility has been put out forever, as creating specialized machinery is incredibly expensive, and the loss of that machinery could be damning to any kind of an industrial concern or facility like this, which is currently seeing them most likely being destroyed. That means that the Russian Federation, throughout the remainder of the war, may have to rely on a far less significant amount of munitions, or at least modern, readily available munitions that would have a low chance of primer or cartridge fouling. Still, the hit is a very significant one, and we do believe that it'll be having some marginal effect on Russian fighting abilities on the front line due to the availability of the limited modern ammunition sources. Meanwhile, outside of that and in the area of Engels, we've also been able to hear of another significant explosion that has occurred within this city as well. It was unknown at the time when the initial fire started what had actually caused the fire inside of Engels, and this is not on the airbase, mind you, this is actually on the city of Engels, just a few miles away, but later on the day, we actually were able to get enough information to confirm exactly what was on fire within this area of the city of Engels, and it does appear that at this moment, there are at least two likely suspects or culprits for the fire and explosion that we are seeing right now. It appears that it may be the Night Central Automobile Repair Plant or the Ruscon S Pipe Fittings Manufacturing Plant. Either one may be significant to the war effort, as both of them appear to be involved in possible operations to support Russian motorized movements within the war, and also Russian motorized movements logistically throughout the Russian Federation. It does appear that the locals are also reporting that the oil depot is still burning as well, which you can actually see off in the distance to the far right, several miles away from the current fire source that we're seeing right now within the city of Engels. This is showing us the Ukrainian armed forces are still conducting a concerted effort at targeting and destroying Russian strategic assets that are vital for the Russians to be able to continue the war. And it does appear that even at this point right now, the Russian Federation is reeling from these significant hits, and there will most likely be a amalgamation of minor changes or minor impacts to the Russians' ability to fight the war that start to grow into moderate and major impacts when all combined together at the same time, like we're seeing at this moment. Outside of that, we also get to see that the Ukrainian SBU has now published more footage and information about the Operation Spiderweb attacks. And interestingly enough, the mobile homes that were being transported by the Russians unknowingly housing these drones actually appear to have had some sort of mechanically retractable roof. As we can see right here that the roof actually automatically moved itself out of the way, and then the drones immediately began to fly out of the openings in towards their targets. We can actually see here that some cars were actually following along with the trucks and pretty much observing them and making sure that they were going to the right places. We can also see here that the Ukrainians made a pretty cool little intro and summary of the drone attack and everything that was involved in it, showing the production, the equipping of the trucks with these drone containers, and then their shipment to their end destinations where they would target and destroy the Russian airfields. We actually got to see the specific facility, now that's been raided and it's also not being used by the Ukrainian SBU, that was responsible for the production of these drones. Funnily enough, this is not too far away, actually, from the FSB headquarters within the city of Chelyabinsk, and the entire thing was largely conducted right under the FSB's nose. Once again, that's been a major thing that's been brought up by many people, as it started to paint the Russian FSB as largely a joke or an embarrassment, as it has been viewed that at least on a domestic threat level, they are not able to assess or identify any domestic threats, quite literally including ones that are right next door. We also got to see that the trucks did travel from Chelyabinsk out into the wide regions of the Russian Federation and then launched their attacks once they were in position. We can also see that once again, according to the Ukrainians, oddly enough, the Engels Air Base was never targeted in this attack. While the Engels Air Base has been one of the most prominent and significant airfields using Russian strategic bombers to target Ukrainians in attacks, we saw that practically every other airfield that was housing any kind of strategic bombers or aircraft were the ones that were targeted, possibly showing that there may have been some additional defense systems at Engels Air Base that may have made it difficult to conduct an attack, or that the Ukrainians may be confident in their abilities to attack the Engels Air Base at a later date. The exact answer to those statements or questions is largely unknown at this moment, but we are still able to see the brand new fresh footage, like we're seeing right here, of the drones actually launching out of the containers and then making their way on their flights of glory to the Russian airfields to target and destroy the Russian aircraft. The only reason that we're showing this additional footage today is because Operation Spiderweb, quite truly, was a historic military operation. We may never see a military operation like this again for the next few decades, and the honest truth is that this is something that is going to be unheard of throughout the remainder of this war, most likely in my opinion. It would be wildly hard to top the resounding success of Operation Spiderweb, as it was able to destroy and knock out 41 Russian bombers out of service, which is 34% of the Russian Air Force's strategic bomber fleet. Such a thing has been never heard of before. Even the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Imperial Japanese Navy, which was considered a massive upset and shock for the United States of America, only destroyed 5% of the entire U.S. Navy's military abilities. And not only that, completely missed the U.S. aircraft carriers, which the aircraft carriers in that period of time pretty much served the exact same purpose as Russia's strategic bombers serve in the present day. These kinds of things have just never been heard of, and even trying to compare the losses to Pearl Harbor is really starting to downplay the absolute impact that this is having on Russia's strategic posturing globally. There is quite literally almost nothing historically that can compare in the modern day, either in the 20th century or the 21st century, to the kind of damage that was wreaked by the Ukrainian armed forces in the event of this attack. We can also see here at the end Zelensky giving an address to the SBU officials that were involved in planning and conducting this attack, and it is incredibly interesting to see that they were able to pull this off and make it possible. But we wanted to show you all a little bit of the additional extra video and picture evidence that we had, once again showing us what the state of Ukraine had been up to, and even more full 4K Ultra HD footage. Moving on from that and on down into the area of the Kursk Oblast, we also get to see that large buildups of military forces were targeted and hit overnight, as the city of Marino within the Kursk region was hit once more. We were able to hear that according to the Ukrainians, there were massive buildups of Russian forces within the city, and for this reason, the Ukrainians went forward with conducting precision strikes against the military targets and trying to knock them out and destroy them before they could be used further in the Sumy offensive or in the attempt of the relief of the encircled Russian forces at the city of Tekhino. And we can also see video footage right here, once again corroborating the attack and its direct hits on the city of Marino. You know, there's an old saying that you can either sink or swim, and it appears that the Russians are going to be sinking in the Marino, kind of like the Marine. But nevertheless, moving on from that cheap joke and on to our next one, we also get to see that the Ukrainians have directly hit a Russian base housing electronic warfare systems within the region of the small town of, and let me make sure that I get this correct here, it was the small town of Kulbanki, which is only about 2 miles away from the ongoing Sumy offensive inside of the Ukrainian state borders. We were able to see these airstrikes being conducted with GBU-39 and destroying the building and the Russian headquarters with a great deal of efficiency, which we can see in this clip right here. The hits were devastating, and we do understand that the headquarters was generally knocked down and the staff were killed in the process of that attack. Outside of that, we also were able to hear some additional news that unfortunately, for the first time ever, the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to confirm that the Russian Federation has managed to cross the administrative border of the Dniprotrovsk Oblast for the first time since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24th of 2022. The Ukrainians say that so far, Russian forces are not able to consolidate their gains there as they are being repelled with FPV drones, but the situation is still not too concerning. While they have been able to make it into the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, due to their proximity to the city of Pokrovsk, they've only been mere miles away or less than a mile away from the Dnipropetrovsk border for weeks on end at this point. In fact, months on end. For the large part, we're speaking about them only being miles away from the active border. We do understand that the city of Pokrovsk is still being held valiantly by Ukrainian armed forces, and it doesn't really appear that, at least for now, Ukrainian supply lines into the city of Pokrovsk or the Ukrainian holdings throughout this region region of Donetsk are going to be threatened significantly by this movement. Not only that, but the Dniprotrovsk Oblast is largely a giant open expanse, with the only major cities being within the area, at least near to the front at the moment, being Slavyanka and Volodymyrivka, meaning that the Russian Federation would still have to push through the open countryside and fields, taking a significant amount of losses to make it to even the next minor towns before they even got close to imagining taking a town like Pavlograd, which is only a minor-sized or medium-sized town or city within the area of the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. It is unfortunate, though, and concerning to see, and I do believe that it shows that the West and the United States should continue to further its support for the state of Ukraine and ensure that the Russian Federation is put on its knees and forced to the negotiating table before they can continue to realize their ambitions of some sort of a complete domination or absolute victory over the state of Ukraine and furthering their ambitions to continue to push westwards throughout the rest of Eastern Europe. Nevertheless, that is all of the major news that we had today. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching, and if y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We love to see new people join our channel, and we try and put out short war summaries each and every single day that we can when there is enough news in the middle of the day. Beyond that, however, you can always count that we will be able to keep this stream running each and every single day, 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, every single day but Monday. We always pride ourselves greatly on being able to do that, and we've been able to do that for 1,203 days so far, and continue to do that, hopefully, well and into the future. And so with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.